Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is pre-match build-up show time with Liverpool back in Premier League action this Monday night, looking to bounce back from that disappointing loss against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. It is, of course, only half-time in that tie, and there is plenty more to happen at Anfield, we are sure. But as Jurgen Klopp emphasised in his press conference leading up to this game, despite the fact it is only half-time in that tie, it still feels like a loss. It felt like a loss after the game, and I think we've got to try and use that to our advantage in this game on Monday night, and I don't think we could have a better opportunity to really bounce back from that disappointing result and disappointing performance as well, I think it's fair to say, than a game at home against a side in as dire form as West Ham are in at the moment. And I think it's interesting looking at both this game in terms of the context of the opponent and also the context of the Premier League title race as a whole. Liverpool are now, of course, only 5 wins away from securing the title. If we can get another 15 points on the board, we'll reach 91, at which point absolutely no one can catch us. The maximum that Manchester City can achieve, and they are, of course, the closest team to us, is 90 points. So once we break that barrier, there's no way anyone's going to beat us. Liverpool will be confirmed as the new champions of England. And with it being so close and with us having so much room for manoeuvre now, essentially, you know, I think we've still got 12 games left. So there's plenty of games that Liverpool could not throw in the bin. I'm not suggesting that we don't try in the Premier League, but games where we could experiment a little bit, where we could just shift the lineup around a little bit, and both in terms of giving fringe players a little bit more game time and a chance to play a role in us winning the Premier League, and also just experiment with potential different options of ways we could set up. And I think this game against West Ham is a very, very good opportunity for that, especially given that I know they're not as good as Atletico Madrid, but they'll probably try to play in a similar way, at least in terms of sitting plenty of men behind the ball, letting Liverpool have a lot of possession and just trying to reduce the amount of clear-cut chances we create throughout the game. Like I said, West Ham nowhere near as good as Atletico Madrid, and I certainly wouldn't back them to put in the kind of performance that keeps Liverpool out for an entire 90 minutes. But in terms of just working out tactical systems that can be used and replicated to break down deep line defences, I would say, to be fair, we've got plenty of those now. Liverpool have so many different ways of playing and so many different styles of attacking opponents that I never feel like there's one way you can actually stop this team. We've seen that this season when teams have tried to sit off from Liverpool. Even just the last time out in the Premier League against Norwich, that's exactly what they tried to do. They put so many men behind the ball, tried to stifle our attacks, and eventually we managed to find a way through because that's just what Liverpool do. But I think there's no harm in trying to find as many ways as possible, and that could potentially come down to using players that maybe haven't been as involved in the first team as they have already been so far this season. And also I'm thinking about bringing youngsters in as well, players like Curtis Jones, who I think is more than ready for Premier League football. Harvey Elliott maybe less so, just simply because of his age, you know, 16 years old. It's going to take a while before he gets up to that level, and I think there's maybe it's probably another year of development for him in comparison to players like Curtis Jones. But someone like Nico Williams as well, I think deserves some more football in the side. And I think all the way through, from goalkeepers to defenders, midfielders, attackers, there's lads in the youth team and there's lads on the bench who deserve a little bit of Premier League football, and we've got that leeway now where we can certainly afford to at least put one of them in. And players like Curtis Jones have shown in the past, when they are put into the first team, it's not to the detriment of it, and they don't look out of place, they don't look like a fish out of water, they're not out of their depth at all. When Curtis Jones or anyone like that comes into the first team, they gel absolutely brilliantly. And like I said, if we're looking for alternative ways to break teams down, if we're looking for alternative tactics that we maybe haven't experimented with before, then there are players like that haven't necessarily been tried and tested in the first team as much as maybe some other fringe players have. You know, thinking about players like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita, who've never really nailed down a starting berth for an extended period of time at any point this season, but will certainly be looking at this upcoming run of games where we are fighting on 3 different fronts in a relatively short space of time, and the fact that the Premier League will be getting wrapped up and they'll have more potential opportunities should Jurgen Klopp want to rotate the squad a little bit more. They'll be looking at this as well, but they are also tried and tested. We've seen them before, and I just wonder whether maybe it'd be better, you know, for the team and also especially for the fans as well. We want to see something new and exciting, and there are lads in the youth team who can provide that at the moment. So especially given the standard of opposition as well, if we field not a like a half-strength team against West Ham, but at least a couple of midfielders or attackers here or there who maybe don't see the team as much as someone like Mane, Salah, Firmino, Fabinho, Gini Wijnaldum, players like that, I don't think it's going to be to the detriment of the side, and I'd still back us to absolutely slaughter West Ham, because that is how good we are and that is how bad they are playing under David Moyes at the moment. So in terms of actual team news going into the game and confirmed players that won't be available, Jordan Henderson has undergone a scan on his hamstring, and he will be out for the next 3 weeks, is the prognosis that the club have given. So essentially, when you look through the dates, I'd pretty much say that rules him out up until after the international break. We've got about 3 weeks now until that takes place, and I think it doesn't really make sense to rush him back for 1 or 2 games right before that break when we could allow him a little bit of extra time. Also, keep him out of England duty as well. We can just say that, you know, he's not 100% fit, and then that gives him a lot of time to actually rehabilitate at the club, so that when we get out of the international break and we're hopefully still fighting on 3 fronts, that remains to be seen, of course, with the result against Atletico in the Champions League, then he'll come back into the side very, very strong, and we won't have to worry about any potential recurrence of the injury, because, of course, hamstring injuries, they can be ones that don't necessarily go away straight away. You can aggravate them very easily, and Jordan Henderson has had his injury problems with Liverpool in the past, although thankfully we've managed to avoid those in the last couple of years or so. So he will definitely not be available for this game, which means we'll have to make at least one change in the side that played against Atletico. Shaqiri was also mentioned by Jurgen Klopp in his press conference. He said that, you know, he's still nowhere near full team training or anything like that, which is a little bit concerning because we haven't really been given any prognosis on that whatsoever, and it sounds like the club have as much of an idea of when he's going to be back as we as fans do, which is frustrating, especially for him from his perspective. With all these games coming up, he'd definitely be getting opportunities to play, looking at matches like the FA Cup, pardon me, a game against Chelsea, and just these Premier League games. You know, I'd almost suggest that he'd be nailed on to get a chance in this match because of the standard of the opposition and the leeway we've given ourselves in the Premier League. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Shaqiri was fit, if he'd come into this side in a similar way to when we just randomly rotated the team in the Merseyside derby right back at the start of December. But unfortunately for him, once again, he's not going to be available, which is a massive blow both for him and for Liverpool as well, in terms of having a player of his quality and calibre around for the sake of squad depth. So as for how I think we're going to line up, I think it will almost definitely be Alisson Becker in goal. We don't need to argue about that one at all. Ahead of him, again, I think the back four pretty much entirely is nailed on. I think it will be Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk as the centre-half pairing. There's no need to mess around with that. Jurgen said in his press conference that while it is technically a midweek to weekend period with the game against Atletico Madrid, it is also 6 days as well, because of course we played them on Tuesday, we're now playing on Monday, so it's essentially an ideal length of break for the players. So there isn't going to be any need for rotation based on fitness. He said that aside from obviously Jordan Henderson coming out the side and someone having to come in to fill his berth in the team, any changes that will be made out of choice rather than on the recommendation of the medical department and for the sake of avoiding injury or anything like that. So I think we stick with the back four that has been working so well at the moment, and that includes Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk, and then either side of them, of course, it will almost definitely be Andrew Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing someone like Nico Williams come in for a game like this. I think certainly further down the line, certainly once the league has been won, a player like him will definitely at least get some sort of chance in the right back spot. But for now, at least, he'll definitely be getting some sort of chance probably in the FA Cup game against Chelsea. So I don't think we really need to rotate hugely at the moment. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold, it just makes sense for him to keep his berth at right back, and the same goes for Andrew Robertson on the other side at left back. And then ahead of them, I think when in the midfield, with the absence of Jordan Henderson, I think maybe experimentation in this area would be ever so slightly bold. While I would like to see someone like Curtis Jones, I'm not sure it's something that Jurgen Klopp is going to do. I think he sticks with something as close to familiarity as he possibly can, just so that Henderson's absence doesn't disrupt things too much, and that means Fabinho will probably be playing in the number 6 role. Gini Wijnaldum will probably be returning as one of the number 8s, I guess you could call them, and then I reckon Naby Keita is going to complete the lineup. He did, of course, start in the game against Norwich and did a fairly reasonable job, and I think Jurgen Klopp did that with the possibility of Norwich playing a low block in mind. Given that we pretty much can guarantee West Ham are going to try and implement a similar system in this game, having someone like Keita, who's shown in the past that he has that unique ability to unlock tightly packed defences and tightly packed midfields as well, both in terms of his passing range and the technique he has for that, and also his dribbling, where he can just drive through a massive group of players like it's the easiest thing in the world. I think that will come in very, very handy in this game. And while Oxlade-Chamberlain kind of has a relatively similar skill set, and people will say that maybe he should start this game instead because of that reason, I reckon given Naby Keita's relatively good performances and also the fact that I think he does deserve a good run in the side, because when he's had them, he has been very good. He just tends to get injured, and obviously once you're out of this Liverpool side, it's very, very difficult to get back in. And I think with Henderson's absence, Jurgen Klopp will be keen to see whether Naby Keita can now step up to the plate and start filling in a regular starting berth in this Liverpool side. So I think he starts alongside alongside Fabinho and Gini Van Alden in the midfield. And then I think ahead of him, you go with the standard trio, Mane, Salah and Firmino as the front three. So as for West Ham then, they are now in the relegation zone. Their Premier League form has been utterly atrocious since the arrival of David Moyes. Possibly no coincidence there, but I think it's fair to say that he has had some influence both on the way they play and the results they're getting. His statement when he arrived saying, "Winning is what I do," is starting to look not just, you know, silly, but borderline absurdist, because I think he's won one game. That was his first game. They've got the draw against Brighton, and apart from that, it's just been loss in the Premier League. As Liverpool fans, that comes as no surprise, because we know how bad David Moyes has been as a manager lately, especially when it comes to playing against Liverpool. When we played them last month for that game that was rescheduled for the Club World Cup, they were absolutely dire. And I think what's really interesting is, are they going to be that bad again? Because I know they are a terrible side, but they were very lackluster in that game as well. One thing that really stands out about this West Ham team is their just lack of game management, and when games start to get away from them, they almost seem to show no interest in dragging themselves back into it. It's essentially up to Liverpool whether we want West Ham to have a go or not. If we don't let them have a chance, if we don't let them find some route into the game, then they're not going to force the issue themselves. They will probably end up just sitting back, defending, trying to hold stem the Liverpool tide from just washing over them and creating a goal. And you just presume that as soon as we go 1-0 up, that's basically game over for them. And I know this sounds like arrogance and cockiness, but at the end of the day, Liverpool have won 25 games, drawn 1 and lost none in the Premier League this season. Compare that to West Ham's record, and then just compare what it's like watching the two teams when they're playing. Liverpool will no doubt be hungrier for everything. They will be first to everything. They will be better at everything than this West Ham side. And I think now they're in the relegation zone, surely they can't be as bad as they were last time out. I think it will be more difficult. And with it being away from home as well, they will be much more compelled to just batten down the hatches and try and get some sort of result at Anfield. I think a draw for them is, you know, essentially like a cup win for us in terms of just how seismic a result it would be and just how much of an achievement it would be for them to get any sort of result against this Liverpool side. In terms of injuries and fitness, they haven't got Andriy Yarmolenko. He is still going to be unavailable after suffering an injury and not being available for the side since December. Unfortunately for us, Mikel Antonio was back. I don't think he played in the game against us at the London Stadium last month, and that was a massive boost, because he tends to be their talisman in these types of games. Certainly against Liverpool, he always seems to be the one that pops up with a goal. Looking back just to last season and the draw at the London Stadium, it was him who got that equaliser, and you can go back through countless seasons and he tends to be the one who gets the goals against us, whether it's like a consolation strike in a 4-1 loss or a goal that actually impacts the result. He is definitely going to be the one to watch, and of course also with, you know, his speed and his efficient finishing as well in these types of games, I think he'll be the one to watch, just because of the way West Ham are going to play as well. They will sit back, they will try and hit us on the counter. Whether they can do that remains to be seen. Of course, saying you're going to hit Liverpool on the counter because they'll commit men forward and you'll have loads of men back is one thing. Actually getting past the defenders that Liverpool leave behind in those kind of situations, or the defenders that Liverpool can get back in those types of situations, it's worth remembering Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez are two of the fastest centre-backs in the Premier League at the moment, and also with their reading of the game and the reading of the game of a player like Fabinho as well, it becomes very difficult to counter this side because they tend to see those opportunities before you do. So by the times teams actually start, but you know, sending the red arrows forward to try and catch us out on the break, Liverpool already have a very clear plan and well executed idea of how they are going to stop you doing that. So I can't really see past the Liverpool winning this game. It sounds like arrogance because it is, but it's justified arrogance, and I think we're getting to that stage in the Premier League season now where it almost takes the excitement out of games in the maddest way possible. You know, looking back to last season, that was exhilarating and ridiculous, and it didn't matter how bad the opposition was, you still felt incredibly tense going into every single game because of the fact that if Liverpool did not win, even if they draw, then that would almost feel like the season had completely gone up in flames. This season, it's the exact opposite. We go in knowing that Liverpool can draw or even lose, and while it would be disappointing for the sake of our record, it almost definitely wouldn't have any impact on whether we win the Premier League at the end of the season or not. And this is why I think perhaps, just perhaps, Jurgen Klopp should fiddle around with the starting lineup a little bit, give us fans something to cheer about as well, something to get excited about, seeing some fringe players and some youngsters come in, and also catch opponents off guard, give some of the younger lads a little bit of experience, and experiment with tactics a little bit more, just to see whether there is any other way that this Liverpool side can win a Premier League game. I'm not sure there is. It seems like they've won a game in every way possible over the last 18 months or so, but I would be perfectly happy to be proved wrong on that. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, as always, you know what to do. Hit the like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LSUFocusTV on Twitter. And I'll be back tomorrow evening after we've hopefully beaten West Ham to keep that 22-point lead at the top of the Premier League table. Until then, bye for now.